Jordan Williams. The latest Taxpayers Union missive to its followers and to its adherents has come out, and it raises an alarm over what the Taxpayers Union feel is a continuance of co-governance, even though the words have changed in respect particularly of the fast-track approvals bill, but other legislation, I guess, later on as well. Joining us to talk about that and why he remains concerned despite the changes announced over the weekend is the head of the Taxpayers Union, Chief Executive, I think, Jordan Williams. Jordan, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Michael. Long-time listener, first-time caller, and all of that.
Oh, is that right? Is that the first time we've talked?
The first time you and I have talked. I can't recall us talking on here since you've been with the platform.
Oh, good God. Okay. Oh, well, we'll have to redress that deficiency.
It's because we're brimming with young talent. That's why. And it's not that you haven't had us on. I think it's just I haven't had a chance to have a chat to you. That's to say.
Okay.
First-time
all
caller,
right.
long-time listener.
Good on you. Listen, mate, in the fast-track bill that made changes over the weekend, mostly related to ministerial powers, it has to be said, you've pointed out that there's something there that needs to be discussed, and you've said that the government intends to replace the requirement for Mātauranga Māori expertise on this panel this panel of experts now is going to decide fast-track projects, with a requirement instead for presumably the panellists to have Māori development and a Te Ao Māori expertise instead. Can you tell me why you still regard that as important and disturbing to you?
Well, the government hasn't explained anything, and we've not yet seen the cabinet papers. But from what we can tell and the advice we've had from our lawyers, with the very limited information that's made available, is there is no difference between Mātauranga Māori expertise, which is meaning the Māori worldview, and Te Ao Māori, which means traditional knowledge or Māori knowledge. That's certainly not rolling back what is likely to be on these important committees a swing vote, yet an ability to defer to unscientific, undefined values that change in every part of the country.
Yeah, that's what concerns us, isn't it? We don't know what Te Ao Māori means. We might not object if we knew, but we just don't know, and it seems to be a movable feast depending upon which iwi leader you talk to.
Well, no, that's very deliberate. That's a feature, not a bug. You look at, for example, the Three Waters or the way Labor tried to do this. It's very clear, or actually what's still happening right now in Te Mana o Te Wai, is the mana of the water can be different, the cultural values can be different to any iwi and hapu, and that it was the regional councils are tasked to figuring that out. What that ultimately means is that you get rights of veto or rights to extract resources or favours or worse on the basis of, these particular committees, basically a swing vote. Now, we had a particular objection that as the bill was first drafted, you had iwi appointments on the same basis as you had a local government appointment, although back then these committees were only advisory. It was the ministers that make the ultimate decision. These powerful committees are now more powerful. Acknowledge we were sort of three key issues we had. The first was this difference to you have to have expertise around the environment, you have to have expertise around local governments, and now you have to have expertise on what was the Mātauranga Māori, but now Māori development and Te Ao Māori expertise. That's the first objection, which we clearly, it's just swapping in some one undefined concept with another. The second is the actual, which is an improvement, iwi, unless it directly relates to an area covered by a treaty settlement, will no longer have the right to appoint. It's the ministers that will be appointing the individuals on the panel. So that's a good thing. So that's one tick out of three. And then the third related to the special consultative rights that iwi get. There's no change as far as we can tell on that. Now, of course, let's step back, Michael, that the point of this fast-track legislation was to ungunk our resource management process. Look, the most gunk is in this area. If we don't defeat this now and get rid of these preferences, to put it politely, then what hope do we have in the next round of RMA reform, which is supposed to be replacement to the whole system?
Yeah, you've quoted Section 16, or I think of it's called consultation requirements for this fast track bill, and you've said that for an application for an approval under this Act, this is what the intended legislation will do. The applicant must undertake engagement with the following groups, and they're all Māori, plus local, and then the relevant local authority. And this is particularly related to customary marine title, but also the relevant iwi, hapu and treaty settlements entities. And in one particular case, I think they've even itemised Ngāti Porou all by itself. Should any of those be in there? Shouldn't it just be relevant local authority? Because doesn't the relevant local authority also represent those people?
Well, exactly. The reasonable minds can differ on whether the public should be shut out of this streamlined process. Because, of course, again, come back to the objective is to speed this stuff up. And once, you get public consultation, then was it given it the right weighting, etc., etc. It should be an all or nothing approach. Either the public are consulted or they're not. What we have found, and this is a continuation of the John Key era approach to co-governance, is special consultative rights for a particular section of the community. We say that's wrong, and it's certainly not consistent with what the governing parties were promising in the lead up to the election.
It seems also, just looking very quickly at it, Jordan, that the so-called fast-track legislation may in actual fact turn out to be the even slower track, because you would anticipate that iwi, hapu, Māori, let alone local authorities, could go to the courts and say that the consultation was inadequate.
Yeah, you've nailed you've nailed it on its head. The other thing is, in relation to the iwi appointments for these, well, not the advisory groups, so now the decision-making groups, is that the government has said, well, it will only happen if it's required by a treaty settlement. Well, no treaty settlement specifically says if a government in the future does some sort of fast-track regime and has expert panels, that we're going to be able to appoint one of them. It doesn't work like that. It's also introducing new uncertainty and potentially new litigation around when a treaty settlement, there's a fair expectation that they would be sitting at the table or be able to appoint someone. Now, that is, again, just more uncertainty that the government had sold fast track was to get around.